and welcome to Geek Legion of Doom. Today we're looking at the 2014 independent slasher drama Through the Devil's Eyes. I didn't really know too much about it before getting into it. Didn't even see a trailer. I got to watch this via a screener sent to me by Leo from Geek Legion of Doom himself. So we're just going to get straight into the movie. The plot sees David, newly released patient from a mental health institution, going to a halfway house to try to learn how to be reintegrated into society, where he meets the doctor and the nurse. There's only one doctor and one nurse, and the other housemates there. He then goes out and looks for odd jobs throughout the town. His first day there, somebody winds up murdered. His second day there, somebody else winds up murdered. All signs are, of course, pointing to the new guy. He then sets out to prove his innocence. That's generally it for the plot. It's fairly straightforward, with the reason David was in a mental institution of any kind being the only real flashback throughout the film. Writer-director R.J. Cusick is a stronger director than he is a writer. This movie has so many plot holes. It's so awkward that it simply does not work. Minor spoilers, you can probably figure certain aspects out within the first 20 minutes of the movie about the trauma that David witnessed to be hospitalized. That's not how that would work. So what he sees is his girlfriend get run over by a train. They're walking along the tracks. Her foot gets caught underneath one of the planks there, in the corner of the plank and the actual rail. And they can't get her free as the train's approaching. She pushes him out of the way while he's trying to get her free, and she gets hit by the train. He's repressed this and doesn't recall it happening, does not remember what happened, totally repressed it. But this isn't the case where he's just reliving that day and stops at that point, or doesn't realize years have passed since then. He's living everyday life. He just doesn't remember this incident and that she's dead. While that would require therapy and that sort of thing, given how the mental institutions in America work, unless he was proving to be violent towards himself or other people, he wouldn't have been locked up. And that literally makes the entire movie impossible to buy into. It does not make sense whatsoever that David would have been there or needing to be rehabilitated in a halfway house to learn how to be back into society for that kind of a thing. They do allude to a past with David that hints at least some form of violence, but it's never told to us, it's never explained to us, it's never shown to us in a flashback. So if this traumatic episode was meant to do something, it was meant to trigger something in David that made him angry, violent, different than he previously was, outside of maybe being a little bit more sad or something, it's never shown to us. So again, you question why he's even there. On top of that, Weird Writing 101 rears its head when it turns out, I think this is a period piece. Some of the odd jobs David does, it's for one man, but they're different job each time. The guy pays him $80 a day, which is a really good deal actually for David. So he gives some of his housemates money to go buy Super Mario 2. And from conversations they have about Super Mario 2 after getting it in the film, it sounds like it's a brand new game. They reference reading the Nintendo Power about it. They don't know that it's not a proper sequel, in so much as it, how vastly different it is from the first game to the second one, that kind of thing. Cell phones are never shown. It's really weird, so I think it's a period piece. Key term there being, I think, because I'm not actually certain, because this movie does such a bad job at setting things up that I honestly might be mistaken there, and these particular people at the halfway house might only have access to back issues of Nintendo Power, and they might have an old Nintendo and just not have owned Super Mario Brothers 2. You know what I mean? The reason behind the person who is doing the killings works fairly well, but there's a nurse character, and maybe it doesn't help that it's the worst actress in the movie, who's so poorly written, who does nothing authoritative and just jumps to conclusions, which is something you can't have when dealing with people whose mental health is called into question. It does not work. The housemates, yes, they're all various forms to various degrees of mentally unstable. One person is super bipolar. One person is taking the trauma of his sister's death so hard that he's literally wearing her clothes. One person seems just genuinely mentally handicapped, and I don't know enough about mental institutions now or then, really, to say if a person like that would be put into a home as such, but there you go. One is depressed and suicidal. So when you're dealing with a group like that and trying to make sure they can keep things in balance, not feel too overwhelmed, and get a steady job and do these other things, jumping to conclusions that that particular person, based on a tiny amount of evidence that you saw, and I mean tiny, she happened to see David talking to the doctor before the doctor's killed, does not work when you are a mental health professional. It's real awkward and real dumb. It again calls the whole plot into question, because I'm not sure if R.J. Suzik, again, writer and director of the movie, knew enough about mental health to properly make this movie, and it seems insulting. As somebody who had family members in and out of various places like this, who've had friends in and out of various places like this, this comes off as it was an easy way to get a bunch of people together and an easy way to throw off blame so you don't quite know who it is that we're supposed to believe is the killer. To be fair to the writer and the director, everything involving the actual mystery and the slasher stuff, and once the cops are called and their investigation, everything revolving around the actual deaths of the people and looking into them works really well. Solid mystery, the reveal of who it is makes total sense actually, and does work. It leads to a small plot hole that I'll get to when I'm done explaining the good things here. I like the way the cops were written. Not some asshole cop, not just accusing people, listens to everybody's sides, tries to understand, tries to put things together based on all the testimonies and evidence gathered. Really smart cop. Really like the way the cop was written. The issue with who the killer is comes in the form of, you're living in a halfway house, you're meant to be trying to reintegrate into society. People would be watching you. That person would not have been able to plant certain things to make David look guilty. in the halfway house. It wouldn't have been possible. But the mystery will keep you guessing till it's revealed. You might be able to figure out a few minutes before then, but it's a solid reasoning behind it, and that aspect works. Directorially, R.J. Kusick does a much better job, even though this movie looks cheap as hell. This movie came out in 2014, which surprises the ever-living shit out of me, as this looks far cheaper and far less impressive than just YouTube shows I watch. Or I don't know if anybody follows Brad Jones, aka the Cinema Snob, but he did a whole series of exploitation things that were shot on Shitio, real cheap looking movies that were shot on camcorder that shot directly onto VHS tapes. It was called Shot on Video. Due to the terrible quality that provided, he and his friends dubbed it Shot on Shitio, and they actually made a movie called Shot on Shitio that's going to be released soon. It's a complicated history there, but still, I don't know if they used one of those VHS cameras, but it certainly looks like they did. It looks horrendous. The quality of the film is terrible. The lighting in the film is terrible. Terrible. There are scenes that are simply way overexposed to the light and is whitewashed throughout, so everything's so bright it's hard to tell. There are scenes that are way too dark. There's one scene close to the end that is real dark and it's meant to be dark, so I'm excluding that one, as it's meant to be so dark you don't see what's going on, you just hear it. This movie, like, I could run out right now and make a 5-minute short outside in the parking lot that will probably look like it had higher production values than anything going into this film. And that's sad. Because in terms of cinematography, that excludes the actual quality of the film. In terms of camera blocking, camera angles, and that sort of thing, the film's actually pretty good. It does a nice job of jarring you into weird scenes and making it really feel like you are toying with reality throughout various points of this, not knowing what David actually knows, what the other characters know, who the actual killer is. He does a really good job of that, and during the kills, cheap though the movie is, they're filmed creatively enough to be engaging and fun. They're a first-person view of the killer. You just see the black gloves and a knife. And the blood does look real fake. I do feel like if this movie were black and white, it would maybe be a bit better, because it would hide some of the more obvious quality issues in terms of production value, and it would hide the really, really obvious fake blood. This is some of the fakest blood I've ever seen in any movie. Might be the fakest blood I've ever seen in any movie. I would have to stop and actually think about that, though. But there's some really cool camera shots that, if they had a higher budget, would have probably panned out a little bit better. But an attempt at ambition was there, and I appreciate that. Looking at the cinematography and the editing, it was also all done by R.J. Kusick, and I can't say I'm that surprised to learn this. As you just heard me talk about all that stuff, I won't get into it, but I will give him this, whatever flaws this movie may have. He has ambition, and there is actual talent behind the camera there. It's just, maybe he shouldn't write things. The music is done by Phil Norman. And if you just heard the score outside of context of the film, you probably wouldn't like it very much. It's very discordant, it's very dissonant, and it doesn't feel like it should work within a slasher drama context. But it's actually one of my favorite things about the movie, because it adds to that element of the people being mentally unstable, the characters never being sure what reality truly is, if they're saying what they think they're saying, that kind of thing. It adds to that so well that within context of the film, the score is really good. The first time the score comes on, because we start off with a scene that doesn't have any music to it, and then it just happens. It is jarring, it's weird, but the score keeps those same motifs and keeps that same sort of hard drumming beat, but like random drumming going on. The more you watch the movie, the further you get into the plot, the further you know what the character is, the more you realize the score really does work in context. Playing the nurse, Liz, is Gaina Lua, and she's horrendous. You've already heard me discuss flaws this movie has, that sort of thing. She's the worst thing about this film. She's fucking unbelievably terrible. You ever go and see community theater, you're like, oh, this was real good for community theater. And then you go see something for community theater and go, oh, this is why everybody makes fun of community theater. Her acting is worse than people making fun of community theater actors. It's fucking reprehensibly terrible. Playing Dr. Humphrey is Joseph Kosick. I'm guessing either brother or father or some other relation to the writer and director. I can't find too much information about this other than what's listed in IMDb, so some things I'm guessing at. He shows a genuine affection for the patients in his care, but when he's stating certain things that are meant to sound very professional or medically diagnose certain things, it comes off as if he's reading from a script versus, you know, being a doctor, if that makes sense. But, I mean, he's alright. Playing the housemate Barbara is Hannah Tippett. She is okay. There are times where she's a bit grating for me, but I think that's mostly due to the writing, not necessarily the acting. I think she doesn't really bring that much to make you empathize or like the character, but she's not doing such a shit show that you actively, like, can't be bothered to continue watching scenes she's in. So, average for this movie. Playing housemate Jonathan Tristan S. Bradford is okay. It was a bit more complicated than most of them, in that his character is the one who's wearing the dead sister's clothes, and he's the one who first befriends our main character of David, but he plays the character more like he's just somebody who likes wearing women's clothing, as versus being somebody who's so mentally distraught at somebody he loved being killed that this is how he's actually grieving. Like, that disconnect makes the character hard to buy into. But in the line-to-line deliveries, he's perfectly fine. Playing David, our main character, is James Andre, and he is really good here. He's very empathetic, he's very likable. His grumpy attitude with their efforts, and they're just barging into his room unannounced. Solid. Works well. His harried, impassioned pleas that he's not the killer are believable. He is very good. I would like to see a better movie with this actor in it. Also, just as good and just as worthy of a better film is Josefa Tolliver, who plays the Detective Castiello. And I really like him. He and Andre have a nice back and forth, a solid chemistry between them. And whenever they're both on screen, the movie's much more compelling than it is any other time. There are a few other actors and actresses that I haven't mentioned. Everybody else is forgettable. I literally couldn't remember who played which characters or what. that tells you the thing about their acting. It's like, I'm reading their names off fire, and you're like, wait, which one was that? Who was this? And that probably tells you something about how good they were. Overall, The Rube the Devil's Eyes, which is a title that does not work in context, if you ask me, is not a good movie. It looks real cheap. It has really bad acting at times. One, so much so that the character is simply unbelievable. And is frustrating. And it's frustrating because you can see moments, especially in the directing side of things, that it could have been really interesting, could have been much more engaging. But I can't really recommend this to anybody, so I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 10, just because I want to see James Andre and Josefa Tolliver be in better films. Outside of that, though, there's nothing warranting a watch of this film. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.